Hey listeners, especially those of you who live in the San Antonio area, you got to save the date. Mark the date, September 7th, 2023, a leadership conference with the theme, God and Country. Special speaker, General Jerry Boykin. September 7th, 2023.
Visit leadtodaycommunity.com/events to get your tickets today.
Welcome to the Today Counts show. Today does count because it impacts, it influences your tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. The Today Counts podcast is sponsored by the generous donors of the Lead Today community. I'm your host, Tim Piper. Becoming the leaders we need to be. Let's call it a presentation. Let's call it a podcast. These are principles that I love to share. I never get tired of sharing this particular presentation, becoming the leaders that we need to be. Here's what I want to say on the front end of this. When we work on improving our leadership, improving it, a concentrated effort to improve it. You improve, I improve, we improve our life and the lives of those that we love and lead. And that is the motivation of this talk. I want to share several principles with you about what it takes or what it is involved in becoming the kind of leaders we need to be. And the first is this: leaders do what needs to be done. That sounds so simple, doesn't it? It sounds so basic that you're about ready to find a different podcast to listen to. Hold on. Do what needs to be done. Do what needs to be done. This is a higher level of leadership principle than a lot of the things that you hear in pop leadership today, if that's such a thing. Let me just call it pop leadership. Now, if you know me, if you've listened to me before, if you've worked with me, you know that I'm very interested in what your strengths are. I'm very interested in what your passion is. I'm very interested in what your purpose is. I'm very interested in your vision. I'm interested in all of those things. I really, really am. But when it comes down to it, those are sidebar ideas. Those, I don't want to say fluff. I do not want to say fluff, but they're not the next level leadership. The next level leadership is doing what needs to be done. So in spite of what I'm good at, in spite of what I like to do, in spite of what I feel like doing, good leadership, becoming the leaders that we need to be, requires that we do what needs to be done. You know what that is. It's the tough decisions. It's the hard conversations. It's the amount of time that needs to be put into a presentation. It is doing the things that need to be done, not the things that we want to do, the things that we like to do, the things that we're good at, the things that are easy to do. Now, all of those things, might be important at certain times in certain places, but becoming the leaders that we need to be, first of all, requires that we do what needs to be done. Man, so when you get up in the morning and you look at your calendar and you look at your to-do list, or you look at your initiatives for the year, you look at those kinds of things, you really need to be looking at, man, what is the thing that really needs to be done? The most important thing that needs to be done. That's the thing that I need to be about today. That's what I need to be about today. Stephen Covey introduced, and many others have followed along. He talked about the quadrants, the 4 quadrants. And the first quadrant is kind of described as urgent and important. The second quadrant is described as not urgent and important. The third quadrant is urgent and not important. And the fourth quadrant is not urgent and not important. So let me go from fourth to first. When we get involved in activities that are not urgent and not important, those are obviously time wasters. Those are stupid stuff. Those are flipping through social media. And a lot of times it's because we're burned out, we're unmotivated, we're not doing the things that we need. We're not about it, right? We've lost our mission, our purpose, or whatever. We want to stay out of that quadrant. Quadrant 3 is urgent and not important. Those are reactive things, that catch our attention maybe, but they're not important. And sometimes we find ourselves doing those kinds of things. Quadrant 2 is really where we become the leaders we need to be. And that's what we call not urgent, but important. What are some things in our lives as people and as leaders that are not urgent, but are really important? Well, there's all kinds of things that fit into that quadrant. Exercise, reading, planning, evaluating, maybe really sitting down and having that hard conversation that we need to have. It's working on things like our vision statement, our mission statement, our values, thinking through these kinds of things. That's quadrant 2 activity. It might be doing some of the business development that we need to be doing, some of the relationship building that we need to be doing. It could even be resting. Quadrant 2. Quadrant 1 is where most of us live our lives. Those of us that are driven, that have a purpose, have a mission or whatever, but we're kind of living in the world of adrenaline, where everything is urgent and everything is important. And we got to get off that track. We got to get off that track in order so that we might even know what needs to be done. So that's the first principle of becoming the leaders that we need to be. The second one is to always live Christianly. You're going to run into jerks here and there in your organization, outside of your organization, in your ministry, outside of your ministry, in your business, outside of your business, your customers. I mean, you're going to bump into stuff. It's important to have enough time living in quadrant 2 so that when you are bumped, it's an old cliche, but when you are bumped, what spills out is good stuff, not bad stuff, right? It's living justly. It's doing what's right, even if it costs us something. This is what it means to live Christianly. So first, do what needs to be done. Dedicate yourself to live Christianly. Always be that person of nobility. Be that diplomatic individual. It doesn't mean that hard things can't be said. Hard things have to be said. Hard things have to be done. But they can still be done in an honorable, respectable way. Live Christianly. Pretty much, don't be a cheat. Don't be a sneak. Don't be a jerk, right? Learn how to live Christianly. The third principle that I want to share with you is to choose multiple mentors. And man, I needed to do a much better job of this when I was younger, not so much in the beginning. In the beginning, I was surrounded by mentors. I had folks in my life that gave me good counsel and good advice and good coaching. But it seemed like when I was there in my early 40s and I was killing it, that maybe I was just too busy, I thought. Or maybe I thought that I had this, I knew how to do this or whatever. Big mistake. All through, I'm in my 60s now, and I am probably more of a learner today than I was in my 20s, certainly when I was in my 30s and my 40s. I think I really became a learner in my 50s, and now in my 60s, I cannot get enough. I love learning and applying what I've learned. Choose multiple mentors. And here's what I mean by that. Think of, let me just pick the number 3. Think of 3 cans of paint, and they're all different colors. Let's take the lid off of each of those cans of paint, and let's look at them. One is red, one is blue, and one is green. Maybe one represents finances. Maybe one represents your physical health. Maybe another one represents your leadership. Or maybe one represents relationships, learning how to develop soft skills. Maybe there's some kind of professional skill set you need to learn. The point is that choose multiple mentors to help you and continue to grow. So here's where we've come from so far. Do what needs to be done. That's a big one. Live Christianly. And you can only do that by understanding your convictions and developing your values, living those values each and every day. And the only way you can really do that is make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that, as I said earlier, when you're bumped, good stuff comes out, not gross stuff. And then choose multiple mentors. The fourth is, if leadership is anything, it's contextual. You can't walk into every context and always practice the exact same thing that you did in your previous context. The story I like to tell is that I've always loved sports. I've loved sports and I love coaching sports. Sometimes I think I like coaching team sports more than playing the sport. That tells something probably about my wiring and how God made me. But I love helping people get to the next level. I love it. I'm dedicated to it. I believe in it. I believe that people who are coachable do get to the next level. People that are teachable, that are available, they do get to the next level. And I love being on their team. I love being their coach. I love being their mentor, however I can help. But the story I like to tell is for many, many years, I coached Little League baseball. Love coaching the boys. But I moved to a new town, a new situation, and those teams were pretty much locked up. But they did have a girls' softball team, and they had an opening for a girls' softball team to be coached. I had never coached girls before. And I thought, well, okay, what the heck? I was very naive. I didn't really understand how much of a radical difference it was between the boys and the girls. And I found that though I always tried to be a teacher with the boys, I always found that I had to very much be a motivator. I had to get their attention. They would pull grass, they'd throw it in the air. They would be sidetracked by a train that would go by, or by an ice cream truck, or by, all kinds of stuff. Or you really had to be a master motivator with the boys. With the girls, at least in my experience, I found that you needed to be a consistent, stable presence. You needed to be a teacher. You needed to notice, because what the girls did is, you ready for this? They listened. They actually listened. Rarely did I have to repeat myself. Words of affirmation were always well received. But I noticed that the girls, for the most part, created a culture of teamwork, a culture of support, a culture of learning. It was completely different. Did I have to motivate? Of course you have to motivate. You still have to motivate. But it was really more about being a rock for those girls and their ups and their downs, and being a teacher. And I think a teacher is a little bit different than a coach. A coach teaches and a teacher coaches, but there is a difference. And boy, would those girls pay attention when I would talk about decision-making in the diamond, why we do this and why we do that. They would be locked in. And you know what was amazing? They actually practiced what they learned. Can I just say it this way? Now, I don't know. I might get some hate letter. You know how to get a hold of me if you do. But I found there was less ego. There was a team ego. The team ego was much larger than the individual ego. With the boys, it was individual ego that I was trying to transform into a team ego. Those are two completely different things. So in our leadership context, we really do need to learn the context and then adapt our leadership appropriately. The next one that I would share with you is beware of the cutting edge. So let me just kind of revisit where we've come from. Do what needs to be done. If we're going to become the leaders we need to be, let's do what needs to be done. Let's live Christianly. Let's choose multiple mentors. Let's learn the leadership context. And now let's beware of the cutting edge. Let's beware of the shiny things. Let's beware of the sparkly things. What am I talking about there? Well, I'm talking about beware of talent. And talent is an HR word now that we use just across the board for human assets, human equity. I mean talent like, wow, it's, like someone gets up and sings a song, someone plays an instrument, someone as an athlete and does some amazing stunts on the field or on the court or on the ice or wherever they're at. You can just see talent. Don't get swayed by talent. Don't get swayed. It's a sparkly thing, and you need to get talent out of the way so that you can examine character. So that you can do a measurement that considers the sustainability of that talent that you see. Innovation is really fun and cool in technology. And a lot of people, we get drawn into the newest and the latest thing where, maybe you need to let some people go first. Let other people go first. Now, if you're an investor and you're like a gold digger, then maybe you take those risks. But good, solid leadership fundamentals, we have a lot of caution towards the cutting edge. We choose not to be wowed by those sparkly things. And then finally, and before I say finally, let's again just look at it again. Do what needs to be done, live Christianly, choose multiple mentors, learn the leadership context, beware of the cutting edge. And you ready for this? No matter what you're doing, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're leading a ministry, whether you're leading a church, whether you are a corporate leader and you feel stuck, whatever it is that you're doing and you're feeling resistance, you're hitting potholes, speed bumps, you've got these things that just seem like nothing's happening. You have wind in your face, not at your back. You have headwinds, and you're going through a difficult season. You're doing whatever it is. Trust God for the long term. Trust Him for the long road, the long game, the long haul. Trust God, because if you're going through resistance, if you're going through difficult times, if you feel stuck, remember this, that's part of the curriculum. It's part of the curriculum. If you skip the curriculum, if you take a shortcut, it will not help you. So I would just ask you, I've shared 6 principles with you. Which of those do you think you need to visit and to consider? Is it do what needs to be done? Are you shying away from the things that need to be done? Are you making excuses? I'm not good at that, or I don't want to do that. Someone else should do that. If you're going to be the kind of leader you need to be, you need to do what needs to be done. Is it that one? Is it your attitude, living Christianly? Do you have mentors? Are you getting coaching? Do you have a mentor in your life? Are you learning the leadership context, or do you expect the context to adapt to you instead of you adapting to the context? And are you chasing out all kinds of rabbits, quick fixes, the cutting edge? And have you become so frustrated that you're throwing your hands up in the air, looking to make another shortcut, or are you trusting God for the long term? Those are some really good things to think about as you are developing your leadership. If you're not part of the Lead Today community, let me invite you. Go to leadtodaycommunity.com. That's leadtodaycommunity.com and sign up for Monday Moments. It's a weekly email that will encourage your leadership. Again, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for telling a friend about the Today Counts show.